By the way, is it true that Piers used to be with Sky News and then you came?
Yes. Oh, did you see Piers and Dave Rubin are having a massive fight
saw
online?
that.
I
What do
saw
you
that
think about it?
overnight. I was surprised. I was surprised by how personal it got.
Right.
Yeah, because Piers was on Rubin's show, and I know Dave quite well, and Dave told him why he doesn't like to do the show and what it's kind of devolved
Turning into.
And Piers didn't say anything back. He was kind of understanding, and then it's got all ugly online. I'm like, just duke it out whilst you're sitting opposite
Well,
each
Dave
other.
said something back. He says, pretty sure Megan got some of the Botox.
Well,
in
yeah,
her
that
brain
was
and
not going to
Piers
help.
would sell
That's
his mother to a
that's
jihadist
post
for a click.
everything else. Okay, all right.
That was
all right.
at 17
That's pretty
hours
bad.
ago.
That's
So
pretty bad.
that comment, and then from there, Piers got into it. 4 months ago, I drove out to Rubin's podcast at his home in Miami, personal favor because he's done my show many times. I thought we were friends. How wrong could I be? What a treacherous little weasel.
Treacherous.
Yeah, they
Yeah, they've gone.
So what do you think about this whole Israel thing? Because that last sentence, right? Being Netanyahu's useful idiots has sent him and Shapiro nuts. Every time this Israel Netanyahu comes, people on both sides lose their mind. Why do you think that is?
Look, we were talking about this in Melbourne recently. I was with a group of members of the Jewish community. It was a function, and we talked about this, and I've talked to Jewish friends about this a lot recently, because there is this fracture on the right where an increasing number are anti-Israel, you would say, or at least very cynical about Israel, I would say, rather than anti-Israel, cynical about Israel. And it's something I think the Jewish community, certainly in Australia, is very much aware of, and it's something that some of them understand what's behind it. I think there's a lot of factors, but yeah, I think it's a real concern for them because they know where the left stands on this issue. The left have made it very clear, particularly post-October 7, where they stand. And to maintain support on the right, I think they have to change the tactics a little bit. And again, I'm generalising here. When I say they, I'm talking about the lobby in general. But this cancellation, if anybody says something that is a little bit different to what you want or is a little bit critical of whether it's Netanyahu or Israel's stated position, I think there's been an eagerness by some, not by all, by some, to immediately attack that position as anti-Semitic, and I think that's really counterproductive. And I think that's behind some of the sentiment we've seen where people are not happy with people being cancelled or attempting to cancel people because they have taken a position that the lobby may not agree with. I think it's just unhelpful, and I think I don't like the principle of it. I think people should be able to say what they want, unless you're threatening or saying something that breaches the law, then counter it with arguments. Don't counter it with trying to get their advertisers cancelled or try to deplatform them as some sort of, undesirable who cannot be reasoned with. I think there's just been a little bit of that from certain segments of the community that has been really counterproductive. I've seen it here in particular, but also in Australia. So, but yeah, there is this growing wing of the right that is becoming more and more hostile towards Benjamin Netanyahu in particular. It is interesting, and I think it's something that Republicans have got to be aware of. You can't ignore it. You ignore it at your peril. I still think it's a small minority, though, because there's so much talk about MAGA's fractured and it's disintegrating. And there was another poll recently, against CNN, 98% of MAGA stands with Trump. So if that's a fracture, then that's
It's
pretty
a
well.
victory.
That's
Right.
a pretty well
And
handled.
that was
yeah.
July
so that
2025 when they showed that clip is from July 2020. I've seen that clip when they showed it. It'll be, the one thing with him is he is a guy that gets ahead of it. He watches all the numbers. He watches all the polls.
I mean, I just don't understand some on the right who say, I'm not voting for Republicans. Or even before the election, they were saying not voting for Trump. What are you then backing? I mean, he may not be as pure ideologically as you want, but look at what he's done. What other Republican would have achieved half of that? And what would have Kamala done? I mean, that mindset, I do not understand. I can fully understand if you've got some rhino that you don't want to vote for, go for it. But if Trump is not strong enough for you, then I don't know what is. I mean, there's things he says or does that I don't agree with, but you're never going to have 100%
Right.
in agreement with anybody.
Did you ever do Pierce's show? Did he ever do your show? Or you guys have?
Well, Piers, I must have done his show at some point. But I mean, I took over his time slot at Sky News, so he was with us. And I think he had a fairly long-term contract. I think it was like 5 years from memory. And then after a year or so, he went off and did his own thing. And so, yeah, I took over his time slot in Australia. But it was a show he did that also ran in the UK. So I don't know who took it over in the UK. But I've never done this current version of his program, which is very shouty.
Very shouty, yes.
It's very shouty, which is what I think Dave Rubin was objecting to. I don't mind the shoutiness. I mean, I see clips every now and then and I find it amusing. Some of it's quite funny.
I think someone's going to do it. Someone's got to do it. And I think Pierce is the right guy
Yes.
to do it because Pierce is not afraid to get out there and wrestle with the pigs and then go talk to a guy that's running for office and then go talk to a president and go talk to Ronaldo. I think he's talented. He's made for TV. And so
Yeah.
whatever people want to say, the guy was made for TV, period.
But I think this product is ideally suited for him because, like you said, he can moderate it, but he can also moderate it with also stating his own opinion. So he's not just,
He's fearless. But, Ben Shapiro made the video about him. I think Ben said something about him, and then, Ben and Dave Rubin are part of the same camp, and they're on the same page. And Pierce, I don't know if Pierce is part of any camp. I think Pierce is a standalone guy.
Is not a conservative. To me, he's a genuine centrist because there are some things he's very conservative.
I agree.
And other issues where he's very much on the left. So to me, he is a genuine centrist where his political belief sort of spread over the whole spectrum. I mean, during COVID, Pierce and I would have been very much on opposite sides of the argument. We would have had some shouting matches if he had the program back then.
He was pro-vaccine. He
was very pro everything. He was pro lockdown. He was bloody getting upset with people who were breaching these irrational laws that existed in Australia and the UK. I mean, the stuff we had in Australia was so insanely idiotic. It beggars belief that people accepted it, and people did accept it. That really changed my view of Australia, I think, forever, because I never saw us like that. I never saw us as so compliant and so scared, because there was the scare campaign. It was across the media, across all levels of government, and people fell into line. So in Victoria, you couldn't go fishing. You couldn't play golf. They banned playgrounds for a period, so kids couldn't go and play in playgrounds. They had a 5-kilometre radius around your property that you could go to. So there was only for a period 5 kilometres. So I don't know, 3.5 miles that you could. If you went outside of that, you'd get a fine.
Isn't that amazing?
Big fine. We had curfews. You had to be home by a certain hour. I think it was like 9 p.m. It was something quite early. And we also had only an hour you could be outside exercising per day. So, and the safest place was outside. The safest place was to be outside. And, all these crazy rules that I'm sure you had some states here in California, New York, where you could be in restaurants, but you could only take your mask off at the table. If you got up to walk, you had to put your mask on, or, just so many irrational, insane laws that no thinking person could look at and go, this makes sense to reduce the spread of the disease, but people accepted it. We had border closures between states. So we had people trapped between state lines, not able to go home for months. People living in caravan parks. We had people whose family member was dying and they couldn't go across a state border to say goodbye, see them one last time because they weren't allowed. The state borders were closed. So if you want to go from Victoria to New South Wales, you either were not allowed or you'd have to go into quarantine. I mean, the laws we had in Australia were Chinese Communist Party level crazy, and particularly in Victoria, that was the epicenter of the COVID scare in Australia.
Well, for some of you that are watching it that are fans, she's officially on Minnect. So if you want to connect her and ask her questions, you can. I think her QR code is going to be somewhere below here.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.